This is KGW News.
I was ready to quit because it was such a hard hit.
A local business in the St. John's neighborhood is broken into twice in less than a week. They're now struggling to reopen. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm John Adams. Ashley Grahams takes us to the record store where it all went down.
Vinyl Resting Place is a small records shop in St. John's.
Oh, there's so many. I don't know where to begin.
Owner Steve Cook says it's too hard to pick a favorite. Hundreds of records fill the boxes in his store.
This is a labor of love.
But on Thursday morning, someone broke in.
The front door was busted out.
And they weren't looking for records. Cook says the person walked away with the cash register and all the money inside.
At least $5,000.
After boarding up the door, Cook weighed his options. He considered closing the store.
I was ready to quit because it was such a hard hit.
And then Vinyl Resting Place was burglarized again. This is the door that was broken on Thursday, and the owner tells me just 2 days later, the same person came back and they shattered this window. Cook shared this video of the suspect caught on surveillance camera.
I could tell immediately that a lot of the records were all thrashed and damaged. And
as he surveyed the damage, he heard commotion down the street.
I walked over, and immediately I recognized the person. I was like, that's the guy that did it.
Cook and another business owner followed the suspect.
It was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're jumping into action. Because there he is, you know. Brian flagged down 2 officers, and they made their arrest.
But an arrest doesn't solve all of Cook's problems. He's still out thousands of dollars.
I'm just taking this day by day at this point.
Relying on his neighbors in St. John's.
Everybody's got your back. I love the community here.
Well, the owner, Steve, tells me his store will be closed for now, but they're trying to reopen by Wednesday. The record shop is hosting a listening session for Casey Musgrave's new album. You can learn more about it at kgw.com. John.
All right, Ashley, thank you. Well, another day of rain for many in the area today. Joe Ranieri joining us now. What's the start of the work week looking like, Joe?
Well, John, the start of the work week is going to be dry, believe it or not, considering just how wet things have been. But it doesn't stay dry for all that long, because by the late morning, early part of the afternoon, we'll be looking at our second storm moving through, bringing in another round of wind and rain. But these are the rainfall amounts we've seen since midnight throughout the metro area. Just about 1/3 of an inch of rain throughout many locations, and along the Oregon coast from Astoria all the way down to North Bend, anywhere from 1 inch to almost 2 inches along the southern Oregon coast. East side of the state, about trace amounts over in Bend, and that was about it. But we're going to be seeing dry conditions as we head into the overnight hours. But again, we're going to have a couple more storms move through the next couple of days, bringing in some wind and some rain and maybe even some thunderstorms. Speaking of the wind, though, for the time being, it's backed off a little bit. At one point, we're seeing gusts along the coast anywhere from 40 to 50 miles an hour. Peak gusts here locally right around 45, 46 miles an hour. That was the case up at the Fremont Bridge. Some locations, the higher elevations in Yamhill County, specifically over Newbury, saw gusts up to 60 miles an hour earlier. Looking into tomorrow morning, the winds will be pretty calm to start off, but they will pick up heading into the later part of the afternoon and evening hours. Look at Newport. You're going to be seeing gusts along the central Oregon coast, anywhere from 40 to 45 mile an hour winds, and there is the potential to see them a little bit higher along the actual beaches there. We do have some advisories. It's a winter weather advisory in place throughout the Oregon Cascades again tonight. A wind advisory throughout parts of the southeast side of the state. Overnight, I'm forecasting 2 to 5 inches of new snow throughout the higher elevations. You've already seen 3 in the last 24 hours, so snowfall is going to be falling pretty quick and hard over the next couple of days. Snow level down to about 3,000 feet. I'll talk more about that in my full forecast about 10 minutes from now.
All right, Joe, thank you. Well, in Vancouver, 7 people lose their home after an early morning house fire. Firefighters were called just after 7 to a home near the intersection of 36th and Northeast 138th Avenue. They saw heavy smoke miles before they even arrived there on scene. They even heard explosions, possibly from propane tanks. When they got there, the fire had spread to several buildings and 100-foot-tall fir trees. Multiple crews were needed to extinguish the fire. No one was hurt. The Red Cross is helping the 7 who were displaced. Washington's King County has a new plan to address the rising number of overdose deaths. It would funnel more resources into harm reduction and lower barriers to treatment. That includes creating more behavioral health beds and distributing more overdose reversal drugs and fentanyl test strips. Data from the county shows the rise of overdose deaths is fueled by fentanyl, both on its own and cut into other drugs.
Fentanyl has changed the game for us in our work. It has dramatically increased the lethality 4 to 5 times that of heroin.
This has taken the life of people who were on the path to recovery.
County officials say the plans that were presented work across party lines and were supported by recovery advocacy groups who say they emphasize meeting people where they are. Officers in one town north of Seattle are now giving out Narcan as Snohomish County also sees a rise in overdose deaths. In 2022, more than 260 people died from an opioid overdose. Last year, that number had risen to over 300. Thanks to a state grant, now all people have to do is go to the police station or ask an officer for it out in the field.
There's a great need to have Narcan in our community. There is an opioid epidemic. We encounter it every day. It's amazing that we could spray something into somebody's nose who's virtually deceased and bring them back to life.
The department says officers save a handful of people with Narcan every year. Now people have easier access to the potentially life-saving drug. 2 Vancouver groups are partnering up in the hopes of getting justice for victims of crime. The National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation joined the Washington State Patrol for a tour of the Vancouver Crime Laboratory. Part of the goal is to strengthen their partnership so they can end the backlog of rape kits.
We have to be at the table in order to be able to work out the kinks, if you will, to make sure that victims, not perpetrators, get the justice in the end.
Well, she says less than 1% of rapists ever see a day in jail. With a theme, no more excuses, the hope is the partnership between the nonprofit and local agencies will bring justice to victims of crime. Well, an outgoing U.S. Congressman is hoping to leave more than just a legacy. Congressman Earl Blumenauer helped secure nearly $17 million in federal funding for several local projects. The focus is on transportation safety and infrastructure projects, like $2.3 million for signal upgrades on Southeast 112th Avenue and $4 million to replace the Hood River Interstate Bridge. He hopes he's left a good example of supporting local government, but not just for whoever takes his seat.
All of these things just didn't, spring from my head. These are the result of the conversations we've had with the community, with local government, with TriMet, and I hope that we have developed a constituency for people to follow through on that.
Blumenauer will retire after finishing his current term. At 28 years, he's the longest serving representative from Oregon. A Portland business owner is looking for help escaping a financial hole made worse by the January ice storm. Elise Schumach started Rose City Book Pub back in 2018. It offers drinks, books, food, and hosts events almost daily. She says the business started seeing success until the pandemic hit.
I think it's cozy. It should feel a little bit like being in your own living room. One of the best compliments I got was that it's the closest thing to not leaving the house. And in particular for the literary people, that's an appeal.
Well, after the ice storm, she says the business now needs to raise $15,000 just to stay in business. To reach that goal, they're hosting an auction with more than 100 items, with things like a Persian dinner to ukulele lessons. The in-person auction takes place tomorrow night, but there's a silent auction happening right now. Visit this article on our website, kgw.com, for details.
Till the gossamer thread you fling, catch somewhere. Oh, my soul.
Well, a big congratulations to Katie Lineberg. Katie was named Oregon's 2024 Poetry Out Loud champion after receiving the top score at the state competition on Saturday in Salem. The high school senior from Hillsborough will now represent Oregon in the national competition in Washington, D.C.
I'm just so incredibly honored that I was chosen out of all those amazing contestants. I just feel like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I was just in shock and just so excited.
Katie performed The Pulley by George Herbert, Beginning by James Wright, and a noiseless spider by Walt Whitman in the state competition. We'll